before we move to the topic itself, I think might be for some of you who are new to Impact Europe, I will just share a couple of information about Impact Europe, and then I will give the floor to my dear colleague Anna Bucchi, who is actually coordinating this initiative. So some of you know already, we are Impact Europe, an association of investors working for impact, and really our main objective is to mobilize more resources, more capital, but also other resources towards meaningful social and environmental outcomes. We currently have 350 plus members across diverse spectrum, across diverse geographies in Europe, outside Europe, and then in the neighboring regions. So we can move forward, Anna. So basically, as a network organization, as an industry association, our main objective is really about equipping and sharing knowledge and skills competences with impact investors so that actually can mobilize more capital and work together more effectively. We are also working on policy advocacy towards the European Union in particular. So how can we create a more friendly ecosystem for our members, again, to be more effective in their work. And I think what is really important is that we are uniquely positioned when it comes to being a European organization and have really strong partnerships with our sister networks on other continents, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And the last one, so that's just an example of the scope of the diverse members that we have in our community, from foundation, impact funds, banks, corporates as well. But I think the key words really about the work that we do is community, building the community of impact investors in Europe or capital providers that are based in Europe, and building connections so that we all can work together more effectively. So that's just in general about Impact Europe. And I give the floor to Anna Bucchi to introduce to you our new initiative, as I said in the beginning. So Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva. Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. So I have the pleasure to present to you the AI for Impact program, a new initiative by Impact Europe, and who is based on 3 pillars. The first one, the first goal of this initiative is really to build awareness around the topic of AI for impact, and the roundtable today is definitely goes in this sense. So asking ourselves, what can AI do for the community, and what also can the community do for AI. In terms of policy and advocacy, as we work closely with the European Commission, we aim to develop a community manifesto and also contribute to inclusive framework setting around AI, and identify also existing alliances both inside and outside the European Commission to promote AI for good. And lastly, we would like also to build a community of practice with our members, and not only. So there will be also initiatives open to non-members to accelerate learning about AI and different topics, such as different topics of impact and also AI and investing. So we really we feel fortunate to count on a group of great partners who make the launch of this program possible. And we also invite all interested organizations to connect with us to explore whether you're interested to join the group and support the AI for Impact program. So now I would really give the start to the roundtable, giving the floor and the word to Ciro Cattuto, who will moderate the session and will present our speakers today. Unfortunately, Nicola from Better Society Capital, who had to cover the part of AI and investing, is sick, so cannot attend. But we'll have a very interesting session. And so over to Ciro. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Anna, for the for the introduction and for the agenda setting. My name is Ciro Cattuto. I am the scientific director of a research institution focusing on data science and social impact called Caixa Foundation, and I am a board member of OGR CRT. My difficult job, but not so difficult, in fact, given the quality of the participants in this roundtable, is to moderate this discussion. And we decided, like in our early discussions, to shape this discussion along the pillars of the Impact Europe AI program outlined by Eva and Anna. So we would like to start focusing on awareness, state of play. Of course, AI is a fast-moving landscape. We would like to track what's happened and reflect on what is going on. Then we will try to dive into success stories and what success looks like and how we recognize it when we achieve it. And finally, we would like to open the discussion to the outlook, what is next, and collect questions from you participants. In fact, to this end, Anna, did we share like a slide or link already in the chat?
Not yet, but I
Okay.
do it if we want to have it on a rolling basis, definitely.
Okay. I guess, yes, I guess we could even leave it open so that people can ask questions while we bring the discussion forward, and this will help us select high quality questions and questions that have a support in the audience towards the end. Thank you. So without much further ado, let me open by introducing the two exceptional speakers we have today. The first one is Carla Carbonell. She's head of research projects at La Caixa Foundation, and she was formerly technical advisor for the Barcelona City Council, a researcher with specific expertise at the intersection of data, AI, and their applications. So we are very pleased to have her, and she will bring to the table the expertise of deploying AI methods in the context of a large foundation like La Caixa and their projects. So welcome, Carla. And then we have Stefaan Verhulst, who's co-founder of the Governance Lab in New York City, as well as the Data Tank in Brussels. And both organizations, as you might know, focus broadly on data governance and generation of more value from data and data technologies, among the other things. Stefaan is also a research professor at Tendon School of Engineering of NYU of New York University, and is a senior advisor of the Markle Foundations, for which he was for over a decade the director of research. So with two panelists like this, I think that our only limit is, the time we have. So let's dive right in, and we would like to focus the first reflections, the first 15-20 minutes of the discussion on the state of play. And so I would ask first Stefaan and then Carla to comment on what is happening in the ecosystem, in the digital ecosystem broadly. AI is certainly moving ahead at a breakneck speed that few anticipated. Powerful market forces are at play around it. And so my question would be like, what happened over the last 12, 18 months that possibly has opened new opportunities or created also new challenges for impact investing and in general for actors who want to generate more social impact and more positive social change from data and AI. What has happened in the broader relevant context? We know that the geopolitics of AI is fast changing and it's complex. And since we are speaking in the context of an organization that has got Europe in its name, a natural reflection is what is happening in Europe specifically. Is there such a thing like a European way to AI? What does this mean for our organizations, and how can the community coalesce around Impact Europe, contribute to shaping positively the ecosystem so that we intercept the most social value and minimize harms from the adoption of these new technologies. So I realize that this is a vast question. Probably nobody has got the answers, but I'm sure if there is one who has got some answers, it's Professor Verhulst. So Stefaan, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks so much, Ciro, and no pressure following this introduction to deliver. So I will try to answer your question, which of course is a multi-layered question. And so I was thinking of answering it perhaps by focusing on kind of 5 domains that I feel are important to emphasize as it relates to what is happening, what's the current state of play as it relates to AI for impact. And the first one, I would say, is actually the domain of impact. Given the fact that we are talking about AI for impact, the question is, of course, are we any smarter about what is the impact of AI? And have we learned more the last year or so? What is the impact? And I think here, I have to say is that is still a big question mark. I think there are indications that, of course, there is positive impact in terms of productivity gains, in terms of lowering barriers to entry or lowering barriers to engage. For instance, if you have a more conversational interface, such as a chatbot, then obviously the way to engage with audiences is different and also far more democratizing than if you would have a different interface or no interface at all. And so we do see many more use cases with a positive impact, but we also see that a lot of those automatically generate concern about possible negative impacts. And those negative impacts are not just in terms of privacy, but they're also in terms of, for instance, loss of skills. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on productivity gains, but then people start to, and I've been the last 2 weeks, been in constant conversations. Yeah, great. Now we can go to chatbot, but are people still going to be able to write? Are they still going to have the skills to actually formulate important questions if they can start, they don't have to start from a blank slate anymore, right? And so there are already many indicating that actually this might create a crisis of literacy if we are becoming more and more dependent on kind of generative AI as well. There's also more and more, again, last week I was in several conversations at the UN around digital well-being and to what extent the impact of AI might be on mental well-being. And so when it comes to impact, I think what we have seen is that it's far more complex. When we talk about impact of investment, there's now also many investors that are starting to call that they haven't seen the return on investment yet. And so obviously this will take a while before that happens as well. But I think that's kind of the current state as it relates to impact, is that it's conflicting and that we actually do need a lot more work on identifying what would be the real social impact, because there are many positive use cases. I'm not underestimating, and again, I don't want to sound like the Luddite here, but I think we have to become more sophisticated about the externalities of some of those kind of technologies, especially as it relates to new dependencies. Now, the other aspect with impact is that this whole conversation of impact is actually kind of becoming a little bit polarizing, by which I mean is that the global north is becoming more and more concerned about the negative impact, both in terms of environmental impact, for instance, of actually using those tools. But the global south is more optimistic than ever when it comes to AI. And you actually start to see this divide in the conversation with regard to AI, where the global north, and especially foundations in the global north, are really worried and investing all kinds of initiatives around guardrails for good reasons. But in the global south, they don't want to wait till AI is safe and secure because they feel like they will miss out if they don't start investing in AI immediately. And so that's kind of the current state of the conversation as it relates to impact. The second area is then what is needed in order to actually develop AI for good. And here there are kind of 3 areas of resources that the last year have become more pronounced in the conversation, and that also shows to a certain set of trends. And the first one is, of course, data. And here what we are seeing is, as Ciro, as you know, is actually a decline in data accessibility. Interestingly enough, the whole discussion about AI has made many data holders even more concerned about providing access to their data, quite often because they see that access to their data leads to extractive behavior by a few corporations that can benefit from it. And so we've seen what I call the emergence of a data winter as we are having the AI summer, where important data sources are becoming locked up, and important data sources are much harder to obtain for public interest purposes than we had before. And that's kind of a negative externality of actually kind of the need for large data sets. The other discussion, of course, when it comes to data is the real need for high quality data, which typically is not available quite often by just scraping and crawling the public net. And so we need new kinds of institutions or new kinds of institutional arrangements to have access to high quality data, context specific data, to really provide AI for specific public interest use cases as well. And this is something that we worked on as it relates to data commons. The other resource is, of course, compute. And here the whole discussion is, of course, can, for instance, the nonprofit sector actually play a role in AI given the amount of compute and computational resources that you need in order to develop AI. And this is, of course, a big discussion because it's not just about having access to computational resources, it's also being able to afford it, because it is still fairly expensive to actually start developing AI applications given the computational resources needed. Now, of course, what has happened the last year is, of course, the arrival of, instead of large language models, small language models. And I think Europe is doing a lot of investment in that space, especially at the university level. And I think that's kind of an interesting area to keep an eye on, to what extent you actually the development of new methodologies and also new models that require less compute, and as a result, democratizes actually AI as well. And then the last resource I would say is, of course, talent. And here we've seen a massive talent kind of war, where the ones that are that have AI skills are being pruned at with high salaries to actually the private sector. And so what does that mean for the nonprofit sector and for those that are working on AI for good is, of course, that the talent that they might need is becoming much harder to obtain. And it's going to be very important to think about the incentive structures to keep them within the nonprofit sector, but also to actually invest in more talent so that it's not those kinds of scarce resource anymore as it relates to kind of model development and especially kind of the latest AI engineering as well. So that's kind of as it relates to the impact and as it relates to the resources. And as it relates to the third bucket, the use cases, is that we have seen a lot more use cases, and especially we have an initiative where we focus on kind of data for philanthropy, but also now more and more AI for philanthropy. And we have seen, and of course, Carla will give a great example of several use cases within Caixa, but we've seen the use cases emerge across the grant making life cycle, right? Starting from what's the problem to ultimately how do you go about identifying kind of partners that you need to ultimately impact assessment. But I think it suffice to say is that especially the first mile, kind of what's the problem and what is kind of what are patterns in the ecosystem, and the last mile, which is what's the impact, I would say that's where the use cases have emerged the most. But that kind of in the middle, in terms of project management and so on, that's kind of, I feel like, where there's still a lot of gaps when it comes to kind of the use cases. Now, the use cases also, of course, have been typically focused on, is this about automation or is this about augmentation? And so I think the realization of the last year is that if you want to create value in using AI, it's really about augmentation, less about automation, because you still need the human in the loop, especially in the sector that we are talking about here, where you cannot just automate decision making, or you cannot just automate some kind of developments of public interest use cases. The fourth area, Ciro, and this, I only have 2 more areas to go, so don't worry. I see you getting nervous here that I'm going to take all the time.
There is time, Stefan.
All right, the fourth area is, of course, geopolitical. And here, of course, we've seen the arrival of sovereignty as a key concern in the whole AI space. And that's the result of what some in the international affairs community have called the weaponization of dependencies, right? Meaning that what you have seen is that, anyway, if you are dependent on bottlenecks such as access to data, access to compute, access to infrastructure, access to talented companies or talented individuals, some might want to weaponize this from a national security or a national interest perspective. And I'm not gonna, anyway, I think everyone knows who and what I'm referring to. And so this, of course, has led to nervousness, especially within Europe, on how to deal with those dependencies. And that has led to, of course, a call for digital sovereignty or AI sovereignty, where you want to become less dependent on some of those bottlenecks and create your own infrastructure for doing so. Now, my concern with sovereignty is that, yes, I totally understand the need, and I think it is a smart investment to prevent those bottlenecks from happening that could be weaponized in different use cases. But sovereignty doesn't solve the problem of what is it that actually society needs and wants. And I think it needs to go hand in hand with what I call digital self-determination, right? So digital sovereignty without digital self-determination becomes kind of a abstract discussion about preventing dependencies, but then not realizing what is it that you actually really want, and how do you engage society at large to define the priorities and to define the conditions and the preferences that need to be embedded in the infrastructure one builds in order to prevent kind of the dependencies. And so that's on the geopolitical one. Again, happy to go on each one much deeper. And then the last one, of course, is governance. And here, of course, anyway, in Europe, you have the AI Act and you have the Data Act now as well. And here, I would say, is that there is a growing realization that much of the AI governance has been focused on kind of the tap, i.e. what comes out of it. Is it discriminatory? Is it fair? Can it be explained? To what extent can it be weaponized as well, right? There's a lot of concern about security, a lot of concern about potential misuse of deep fakes and so on. But from my point of view, what really needs to happen is also more focus on actually the pipes in addition to the tap of AI. And by the pipes, I mean data and data governance. And again, it goes back to my earlier conversation, or my starting point with regard to the data winter, is that unless you have access to high quality data, and unless this is done in ways that is fair and non-discriminatory, but especially in alignment with rights and preferences, AI governance will actually fail to step up. And so AI governance without data governance, from my perspective, is not going to do it. And interestingly enough, of course, AI governance is also impacting data governance itself, because when we talk about data today, we're really talking about unstructured data, where data governance in the past was always about structured data. And now we are actually entering a space where unstructured data becomes the real interesting data set for AI. And when we talk about unstructured data, we're actually talking about content produced by, for instance, media, or content produced by content producers such as authors. And so there, we're actually entering the space of copyright much quicker than we were in the past when we were talking about data protection, which was all about privacy. And so now we really need to upgrade even our data governance framework as well. So I'm going to stop here, but as I said, I think there are, this is a dynamic space. What impact are we seeing remains a question mark, but obviously we see a lot more use cases, but I think we need an evaluative framework to really becoming smarter about what is the impact. We really need to invest in a few resources that are currently locked in or not available. We need to start thinking about a more diversity of use cases that focus on augmentation as opposed to automation. We really need to complement data sovereignty with self-determination. And then lastly, of course, data governance and AI governance need to go hand in hand. And that's where we see kind of a mismatch at the moment, despite the fact that we have now a lot of the focus on AI governance, but without data governance and upgrading data governance, we might not get the ecosystem we want. That's it, Ciro.
Thank you, Stefan, for such a lucid and extensive answer. And I will have a million questions. I'm sure members of our audience also have many questions. So this is a good moment to remind you that in the chat you can find a link to a Slido where you can actually post like ideas or questions that came to your mind during Stefan's reaction. And I think there is a lot of food for thought here and a lot of like several of these 5 pillars you outlined deserve unpacking, but let's progress with our conversations, and then let's take the opportunity towards the end to unpack selectively the specific questions that the audience consider most relevant for their mission and the mission of their organizations. Thank you again, Stefan. And I would now pass the floor to Carla to discuss on the same question in a sense. So to reflect from your perspective, or a practitioner in leading foundation, rolling out AI products, what is the state of play? What has happened over the last 12, 18 months? What do we have to pay attention of, and what is the community missing in terms of focusing their attention? And this is again, about the general context, and then in a second round of discussion, we will specifically dive into success stories, and I will ask Carla to unpack some of those success stories. So, Carla, do you have any reactions on Stefan's comments, and in general, any position on the general question of the state of play and the readiness of the sector?
Yes, thank you, Ciro, and thank you for actually inviting me to participate in this interesting roundtable in AI. Not much more to say after incredible Stefan's speech about it, but yes, maybe a couple of ideas of how from a philanthropic foundation, and maybe for the ones you don't know, like Caixa Foundation, I usually say that we are like 4 foundations in one. I'm the head of the research projects, but we fund social programs, educational programs, cultural programs, and research programs. And I'm part of the research fellowships and innovation executive direction. So that's, I would say, one main idea that later on might come up relating AI and how philanthropic foundations are working with it. So what has changed for us in the last year and a half? I would say that one of the main things that I like to say is that AI is an option. So when we started having ideas of using AI or being assisted by AI in our processes 8 years ago, nobody thought about that, or nobody was talking about using AI in grant processes. So now AI is a real option for foundations to be able to think about AI assisting selecting processes or processes related with the grant managing of the selected projects. So I think that is one big change in the last year and a half, and changing really, really fast, because I would say that one of the concerns about the foundations is it good enough? can we believe, can we trust AI in our processes? What will people think? What will our applicants think? What will our reviewers think? And that's still something that is really something that really worries a lot of foundations, and that is taking big considerations before taking steps forward on using AI in our process. So I would say that this is one huge change for the last period. Also, awareness on the use of AI and spaces to discuss about the uses of AI and learn from each other. So when first foundations for first organization using AI in internal or external point of view on their day-to-day processes is being a reality, this able to share our experience, share the knowledge or the problems that we had to face, it is really, really important. And I would say that in the last year, spaces to talk about this, groups to discuss this, and safe spaces to share the things that we are scared of is really, really important also in this. The increasing the general use of AI, I think is helping in acceptability. And as society moves in that direction, it is easier for foundations or organizations to start to think about applying the use of AI internally and externally. The increase of the use of AI brings to regulation, and this is also important for us to trust more in the process and to increase also the acceptability. So again, that is a loop that is kind of important to have all the pieces on place in that sense. But again, this is moving so fast that internally or externally, you need new talent, new expertise that maybe were not there in our teams. So actually, lots of foundations are also facing the decision of, do we need to hire that new expertise needed to be able to face those new processes? Do we hire that externally? Do we become partners with somehow of organizations that are leading that process? And later on, when we talk about our use cases, I can explain and more deeply, if you are interested, what we have decided and what are we changing now that we're trying to, I would say, abroad the use of AI more widely in La Caixa Foundation, and not only focused on the research programs. That is what we've been doing up to now. So I think that those are few ideas related of what we've been saying. And I don't know, Ciro, if you're okay with that, but maybe we can give you back the floor.
Thank you so much, Carla. And now, of course, the original program foresaw an intervention by Nicolas Andreu for Better Society Capital. So we are sorry not to having with us. We will move on with the program as stated. And of course, there is always an opportunity to focus on the specific needs of impact investors in the Q&A at the end of this session. Now, having taken a stock of the state of play, we move to success stories. What does success look like? In this respect, relatively few nonprofits and impact investors have pioneered the adoption of AI tools within their processes, and by doing so have gained experience in what it means to roll out AI products, AI tools, and mostly what it means to validate them, to really learn what they can provide, what their limitations are, to learn their risks, to learn about risk mitigation in adoption of AI in impact investing and nonprofits. And then the topic that Carla already touched on, like how do organizations can bridge skills and organizational gaps, right? Because these new processes cut through traditional functions and require rethinking sometimes how the organization as a whole works. So I would now love to dive into success stories, what success looks like, how we validate, also to show and to share with this audience what are success stories on AI adoption that possibly can be replicated across other organizations and can deploy impacts in this horizontal dimension of adoption. So to speak on this, we go back to Carla, in fact, because in a role she did have the opportunity and the capability to deploy early on AI products within the processes of the foundation, which means that she's one of the few persons who's been learning to learn about this early on. So I would ask you, Carla, about your specific experience at La Caixa Foundation on designing AI products and bolting them to the processes of a nonprofit, and what success looks like, and what the community can, in a sense, copy in the most constructive way from you and your experience.
Thank you, Ciro. Okay, there's a lot of information to talk about here, so I'll try to give you an initial overview of why we started using AI, what are we doing, so what things do we have in place, things that we want to do it, that we are working as we speak, and how are we moving forward in the process that we are applying, focused on the research programs to other programs within La Caixa Foundation. And as I was telling you before, we started like 8 years ago, and I like to say that was because a real actual need. We had that need. If you don't have that need in place, to face the same problems that we're going to be sharing in a moment, other internal calls have been doing that manually, or facing just the huge amount of proposals step by step. We knew that we would not be able to do that. And as myself and our team come from research, we are not afraid of experimenting and moving forward on only in those situations where information is solid enough, results are solid enough, and just keeping aside those situations that were not good enough, but learning a lot from them. So one of the main things is that we were not afraid of testing and failure, and then maybe someday success. And that idea internally with social programs or educational programs or cultural program is not that easy. So now that we have success cases, those cases are starting to move forward within La Caixa Foundation, as we are also sharing them with other foundations, because you already have a success case, and that makes it easier, and that is really, really important. And that is why I'm also saying that we are happy to share not only our experience, our knowledge, and that's why we are usually participating in any conference or debate we are invited to. Because if any one of you later on want more information of any process, we're happy to share. But as I was saying, it was an initial real need. When I started in La Caixa Foundation, they wanted to boost and triple the budget in research. And you cannot do that if you don't go through competitive calls. So that was the only way, and that is the proper way to do so. So it was the first big research call within La Caixa Foundation, and we were expecting a huge amount of projects, and that is what actually happened in the first edition of the health research call biomedical projects. We got almost 800 projects in 5 different thematic areas. So we knew that we would have to face a huge amount of projects, and that getting the best matching within reviewers and application was going to be a huge, huge challenge. And putting 3 reviewers per application, so that's more than 2,400 evaluation, was going to face a lot of big challenges. So that was our first step. And as Stefan was saying, it was more trying to find an automated process to help us on that. But that was, I would say, it was the first step that gave us courage enough to say, that is going to be a mess if we have to do that manually. I have to say that with the actual process, we have less than a 20% of rejection for lack of expertise. I know that lots of foundations are facing a huge percentage of rejections on their reviewers for lack of expertise. So we are under a 20%, and that for biomedical projects that really need a specific expertise. So it's really a huge dimensionality problem to find the proper reviewer. That was really important. So we started with a scrapping process. So huge amount of data gathered yearly, updated yearly, a huge amount of data from PubMed website, mainly because a lot of biomedical publications are in PubMed website, and everything is open source, and gather all the information to have a really good and deep characterization of our reviewers. That improves, obviously, the matching process, and later on building our first automated process. I wouldn't say that the first version was really AI. It was an automatic process. Actual version is real AI process, just because of the amount of data and the business regulations that you have to add to that makes a real huge amount or real huge problem to solve. But that's how we started. It was an actual need. We get a huge number of proposals with a huge dimensionality problem and a need of a really specific expertise. So we did a scrapping process and a matching process. Then, after a few years of our call, we figured out, or we saw, we could experience that around 30% of the proposals that we got that were at that point, and that's really important, at that point, not mature enough for a call that had a success rate around a 2.5. Although we've doubled the budget, our success rate is between 4 and 5. So that's really low. So we started to, we had a already success process based on AI, that was the scrapping and the matching process. So we decided to build an experiment and see if we could train the AI with all the applications we had on the research call to be able to detect proposals with low probability of being selected, with the only goal of decreasing the workload our reviewers had. So if you have a really competitive call where you say no to a 95 of the projects, there's only a 5% that gonna finally get it, or less, or a 4%. Only around a 15% get to the interviews. So if we can really detect those proposals that don't have a chance, we will help our reviewers to focus on those that are in the gray zone and actually improve the evaluation. So that was the goal. We got 3 algorithms, open source. We download them to our servers, so it's completely locked to the whatever, so there's no leakage of information. We train those algorithms with some parts of the proposals, research text parts of the proposals, not personal data, not names, not organizational names, not even CVs, only research information, with the scores of the previous editions of the calls, so around more than 3,000 applications when we started this testing and piloting on 2021 and 2022. We are actually training nowadays with more than 4,000 or 5,000 applications every year. But when we started with 3,000, it was good enough. So we train our algorithms to detect proposals with low probability of being selected. And as we had 3 algorithms, we could always go for the conservative path. We only considered a proposal with really low probability of being selected if 3 algorithms agree. So we tested that, and we tested the quality of our data deeply for around 2 years. At that point, we decided not to move forward with this process within the innovation program because we were not sure that the correlations that we found with the innovation projects were not affected with the noise related to the changing structure of the application form of the previous years. So we decided to put that aside and only move forward with the health research program, because results were really solid. So we did a pilot in 2022, and we did a pilot completely parallel and not affecting at all the real evaluation process of the 22 edition call. And results were so good that our internal board, even with the I would say, novelty of the process on 2022, decided to move forward and put that live on 2023. So since 2023 live, we have what we called a content eligibility process, where 3 AI algorithms flag those proposals with low probability of being selected. Those proposals are sent to 2 human beings, and Stefan was saying that before. You need human in the loop, but those 2 human beings only have to say, I agree with AI said, or no, I have a reasonable doubt. And what we tell them is that the main thing they need to try to detect is the false positives or false negatives. So that means, as we are training the algorithms with previous with previous applications, if there's an application that is different, out of the box, or whatever in that sense, that could be a false negative. So their main task is try to detect proposals with potential that could be flagged because they're different. So we've got 2 human beings in the loop, if only one of them has a doubt relating that proposal, they are back to the evaluation process. If the 2 of them confirm what the AI said, they are rejected on the eligibility process and they don't go to the evaluation process. So our main goal here was not to, at least for now, not to save money or time, but to help our reviewers to focus on those proposals that really have a chance. And we have that on place since 2023, and we're already ongoing on the 4th edition that's right now open for application. While we were doing that, one of also processes that is a huge workload internally for my team is, I would say, checking or reviewing all the evaluation reports. We give feedback for all evaluation phases. So remote evaluation with 3 reviewers or even a 4th one if there's a discrepancy. And even for the interviews, we give a report, a feedback report for all of those phases. And we used to read all of them because we're human. There could be a mistake. They could mix up proposals. So you can get a report talking about lung cancer and it was pancreatic cancer. And that's something that should not happen. So we used to check all the reports manually, and my team, usually 2 persons of my team, read those reports. So after years of doing this, we have, I would say, detected a list of usual problems that we can find on the reports. So not polite comments, or obviously problems related with English. We have international reviewers, but not all of them have English as their main language, although it's the main language in research. For reports, that could be an issue, but mainly non-polite projects or unclear comments or mixed comments, or they just work offline, they put it then online, and they copy the same comment 2 times. Those we detected a list of normal problems that we used to find. So now we have an AI process that reads the reports and flags those possible problems. Or like, for example, talking about this consortium is great and it's a single proposal. So we have really detected issues that we could find through the revision of those reports. So now we can focus and go check those reports that the AI flags that there might be a problem there. So instead of reading the 100% of reports right now in both phases, we can focus on those that AI flags that there might be a problem. So besides, I would say, things that are normal now, like using AI for summaries and helping in those kind of things that we are also doing. The use of scrapping, matching, content eligibility, and the assistant for the reports, and even compilation on the final report for the interviews. You cannot give a report with 12 comments from 12 different reviewers. So we do a compilation of that final report. We do all those processes assisted by AI. So that's in place. Those are working. And besides the content eligibility process, so the one I was explaining you that detects the projects with low probability of being selected, the matching process and the assistant with the report revision, those are also applied to the innovation program with obviously the adaptability needed. What are we doing now, and what are the processes that we just launched 2 weeks ago when we opened the actual edition, is the goal for us of using AI is improving our processes. We like to think we're good at them, but we can be better. And AI has become a real good tool to help us on that. But also help our users on their process by applying or reviewing our proposals. So we have launched a chatbot that is uses all the information we upload. Is closed, so it's not taking information from the website. It's taking information from the document related to the call, rules of participation, guidelines, evaluation guidelines, eligibility guidelines, manuals, step-by-step application manuals. So we've built a chatbot for that. We have a system that we can build a chatbot for any call with the different documentation. And our red lines here, I would say, because now you can find chatbots everywhere, but our red lines here were: don't invent, don't give advice. And mainly because users like to ask a lot, my project is about melanoma. What thematic area should I apply to? I mean, it's obviously oncology, but we cannot give that answer even if we know it. We cannot advise the applicants about that. We don't want to, actually.
1 minute
Sure.
left. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have a lot to say already, but
No
yeah,
worries.
promise. 1 minute. So we have launched the chatbot with those red lines on place. We are now giving an assistant for the writing of the application to our applicants. So we knew that, I would say, big research centers are building their own. And for us, that was a democratic decision. So we don't want big centers to keep being bigger than the small ones. So we are just giving them an assistant that it only helps with English. And that in Spain, it's important. So it helps with the writing. And just two more really big ideas. We are opening, I remember the tool I was telling you that help us detect possible mistakes with the evaluation reports. We're opening that tool for the reviewers, so they know when they submit if there's possibly a mistake related to their information. And we are working in a new experiment and trying to go deeply in explainability processes. So we would like to give why the AI is flagging that proposal with low probability.
I think we might have a question exactly.
Yes, I'm sure you've got a
So,
question
yeah.
on that. But let me tell you that we are having promising results on that. Not yet out there, but promising results.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carla, for such a rich and in-depth account of your experiences. We have a few minutes left, and also we have a few interesting questions. So I would say let's discuss the questions. One that I find marked is about safeguards. The question is, what safeguards do you use to prevent AI from reinforcing existing inequalities in grant distribution? And how transparent is this process for the applicant?
Should I go with it?
Sure.
Well, transparency is one of the main things. So it's published everywhere. It's published in the rules of participation. It's even more detailed in the evaluation guidelines. And we even published a couple of years ago, that I have to tell you it's already out of date, but we already published a couple of years ago a policy paper with details of all the process and the pilot that we did. So transparency is really, really important. We give an informative session every year. Those is one of the topics that we actively explain, and we are happy to answer any question related to that.
Thank
and
you.
Related to the first question, so how we make sure there's no biases. As I was telling you at the beginning, the only process you could be worried about having biases is the one detecting projects with low probability of being selected. And we took 2 years to analyze that data really deeply. And we didn't move forward with the innovation program, not because of biases, but because we were afraid that the correlations were not neat enough. So we took 2 years really deeply to study that.
I think it's important to convey that this is a complex process.
Yes.
These are the timelines, right? It's not, these are not ready to use products.
Completely. Step by step. It's better to be, slow or to feel you're slow, but move step by step and don't take another step if you are not as sure of the previous one, because that helps acceptability.
Yeah. And thank you so much again, Carla. And we have another question. I guess we have time only for one more question. I think this is naturally targeting Stefan. The question is actually a governance question. What does it mean to set up guardrails given the discussion between the global north and global south is polarized? And so let me rephrase it more broadly. Like, what does AI governance means in a polarized world with respect to its adoption?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, there's need for growing awareness what AI governance is and what it isn't, right? I mean, quite often when I'm in meetings with many people that are kind of excited about AI, they see AI governance as an additional burden and as something that will limit them from experimentation with AI. And if we can make clear that AI governance actually is an enabling approach where clearly you will have guardrails, but it does not mean that you won't be able to experiment in a safe environment, but that will actually, as Carla was saying, it will increase acceptability, it will increase the trust, and it will also improve by the end of the day the results of the tool. I think that's the real pathway forward. And that means that there is growing need for awareness, growing need for kind of training, what does AI governance mean, but also growing awareness that to a large extent, a lot depends on the basics, which is kind of, anyway, what's the quality of your data and what's the quality of your algorithm, and that will then determine also how you go about setting the guardrails, right?
Thank you so much, Stefan. And I think we are right at the top of the hour. So let me thank you again, Stefan and Carla, for these very insightful comments. I will pass the mic back to Anna for closing comments. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ciro. Very, very quick, because I know we finished our time. So as you know, in November we'll have the Impact Week, our flagship event, and we'll have a dedicated session on AI and impact on the third day. And then we really would like to have your feedback both on the roundtable and on the AI for impact. We are building it, and so it's very important for us to gather your input. So you can scan the QR code. It's a 4 minutes form, and it would help us shape the program. And I think this is it. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. We hope it was interesting for all of you. Thank you, Ciro, and Carla and Stefan.
And Marnix Mulder, who in the background did a lot of work.
And Marnix from our team, who really shaped also the roundtable and all the work we've done so far. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you.
Bye.
Ciao.
See you in Malmö.
Bye-bye.
See you in Malmö.
See you in Malmö.